Horror games aren't scary anymore, or at least not like they used to be. As a big fan of horror, I've noticed a significant shift in the genre over the last 2 years. And in fact, this channel originally actually started as a horror gaming channel because of how much I've always loved the medium. From psychological horror, to cosmic horror, to even the coveted survival horror. I've enjoyed just about all of it. But compared to present day games, I feel like the games I played growing up were just so much scarier. And don't get me wrong, I know the indie scene is absolutely carrying the genre right now. So by no means am I saying horror itself is dead, but I think the vibes of the older horror games just kind of hit differently. Just look at how many horror games are getting remade to help recapture that magic that they delivered when they had first released. And to further give you an idea on how great this genre was at its peak, we had titles dropping like Silent Hill, Outlast, Alien Isolation, Dead Space, and one of my all-time favorites, Fear. And as a kid, I loved exploring all of these worlds in each of these games. From battling enemies head-on to running away from monsters. I was always excited to see what I was going to encounter next because each of these games, were actually really scary in their own way. And while this sounds all fun and great, there was one game that came out in my childhood that haunts me to this very day. A game so scary that upon playing it, I took it back the same day. And you may be wondering, what game could this possibly be? What could be so terrifying? And this game was none other than Condemned: Criminal Origins.
Help me.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I have never been a fan of the murder mystery shit, especially the real life stuff like The First 48 and all those murder podcasts and Netflix TV shows about real life serial killers. And yeah, Evan Peters, I'm looking at you, buddy. I'm not coming over to watch your little home videos, okay? Fuck! But with that being said, what could go wrong with me playing a crime game about serial killers that kind of mimic some of the real things that happen in the world? Well, why don't we dig a little deeper and find out, I guess. So first things first, Condemned was created by a little known company called Monolith Productions. They also created another really popular IP named Fear. But this is where it gets kind of wild because I don't know what kind of voodoo or black magic they did to do this, but they created both of these IPs in the same year, within a few months of each other, as Xbox 360 launch titles. And as you can imagine, both horror games had a similar feel, from the exploration to the soundtrack and even some aspects of the story. And with Fear, it was a scary game with an arsenal of guns, utilizing fast-paced combat sprinkled in with a little bit of bullet time slow-mo. Whereas with Condemned, the combat was much slower paced. And on the surface, that may sound like it was a little boring, but this combat was designed around you not being able to be some kind of Billy badass that could mow down hordes of enemies, but a mere man using self-defense and just trying to survive. Holy fuck, this guy's scary. Oh God. Condemned takes place in the grimy city of Metro, a place so riddled with crime and violence, it makes Gotham look like a fucking paradise. And we play as a character named Ethan Thomas, an FBI agent who's investigating multiple serial killer cases plaguing the city. And early on in this journey, we make our way to this abandoned warehouse where we find yet another victim of one of the serial killers that goes by the name of Matchmaker. And this creepy bastard abducts women, tortures them, and then sets up these weird date-like scenes with these mannequins. What the fuck is that white stuff on his face? But he's been having too much fun with the mannequin, man. And it's definitely some nightmare material. Now, if that's not already creepy enough, upon collecting evidence, the power goes out in the building. And of course, in typical horror game fashion, the other officer and investigator task you alone to go reset that circuit switch. And as you do so, you find that a bunch of psychopaths have begun breaking into this abandoned building to try to antagonize you as you go to reset that power.
Thomas Dickinson, there's one coming your way. Addict amped up on something.
Hey, pig! I know you're down here!
And this right here showcases the roller coaster that we're gonna be strapped into for the rest of the game as we venture through Condemned. And the younger me was already creeped out by the serial killer investigation, and then you had the power going out with the creepy, foreboding music. And sure enough, as soon as we made our way a couple rooms over, we get attacked by a drug addict psychopath, and I just barely was able to kill him. As creeped out and scared as I was, I heard yet another crazy criminal hunting and looking for me, ready to mangle me at first sight. And honestly, as a kid, that was enough for me. I quickly went to the main menu, dashboarded, noped the fuck out, and that game went right back to the store. And this game, honestly, when I thought about horror games, had always been in the back of my mind. I knew I had to come back to Condemned someday. And 16 years later, here we were. Someone doing a little fucking science experiment on the bird, dude? What the hell's that about? Upon playing through this first chapter again and having plenty of horror games under my belt now, I was able to push through and defend myself against all these crazy psychopaths and made my way to turn the power back on. Along my journey, Ethan starts to hallucinate and see visions of what happened before. And this sets the stage and starts foreshadowing the supernatural entanglements that are gonna begin to unravel with our story up ahead. We use these visions to locate the circuit breaker and turn the power back on. Upon doing so, we are ambushed by a suspect. After attacking us, this suspect then grabs our gun and runs away. We do everything we can to catch back up with this man, but it was too little and too late because he uses our gun to murder the federal agent and the police officer, thus framing Ethan as a crazed cop killer. And this leads us on a mission for Timtationz to not only clear his name, but to try to stop this mysterious man who may be the key to the rising crime in Metro. And not only that, we may come to find that Ethan has more in common with this man than we once realized. Now, I'll keep it a buck with you guys. The story overall was all right. I mean, the game's old enough to fucking vote, so of course the story's gonna be a little dated. And if we compare it to Fear, it's definitely not as memorable, but the overall atmosphere of Condemned is what really makes it scary and shine as a horror classic. And you may think,
well, the graphics look like shit, so how could it be fucking scary, bro?
well, let me tell you, buddy, despite the graphics and the age of the game, and maybe a little buggy AI from time to time, this game, it delivers on the horror factor, okay? The developer's level design in Condemned and the eerie soundtrack, you're gonna feel anything but comfort. And if you weren't getting attacked by a crazy psychopath, there were these creepy possessed crawler guys that just came out of nowhere, ready to grab your ankles and drag you to hell or wherever their fucking lair is. But all this added up makes the perfect recipe to keep any normal sane player on edge throughout the game. I will admit though, as I made it to the last few chapters of the game, that scare factor kind of wore off a bit, and especially in the last chapter, it's just like a fucking straight up brawler beat 'em up where you're just smacking through hordes and hordes of enemies before you fight the final boss in some like weird samurai-esque battle. But again, overall, I would say that the game delivers on a lot of scare factor, and there are many creepy moments and levels that are gonna make you feel a little uncomfortable, especially this one level that takes place at this department store. And all I gotta say about that is fuck mannequins, bro. I don't like that. Fuck off. No. Now let's jump into the gameplay mechanics for Condemned. Playing as Ethan, we're armed with just a flashlight and a taser. And aside from the first level, each chapter you go into, you start with nothing. You don't even have a weapon from the last chapter. So there's this desperation to always look for a weapon before someone catches up to you. And how you get some of these weapons is pretty unique. From breaking apart pallets to get a 2x4 to ripping circuits or pipes out of the wall, you gotta do whatever it takes to defend yourself against all these crazy psychopaths that are ready to mangle you. And you're not alone on this. The enemies that come to attack you are also looking for weapons. And there is nothing scarier than watching a crackhead rip a sign down or break some pipes and run at you. And these guys are so bloodthirsty, they don't give a fuck who they hit when they're trying to kill you. They fucking constantly, as I played, would be hitting each each other just to get a chance to even get a scrape on me. And that was another thing I thought with the AI design was really unique, was just how insanely aggressive the enemies were typically. And you have small and quick enemies to big brutes, so you couldn't just use the same kind of tactics to beat all of them. Now you may find some guns, and some of the enemies may even use guns, but they're few and far between. So when it comes to that combat, it's all about this parry system that they have built up. You have to time your blocks as they're attacking you so you can get a good opening to go in on them, because generally if you were just spamming, these enemies easily kill you, and it doesn't matter what enemy you're fighting, they're generally gonna fuck you up, dude. Another cool thing about the melee weapons in this game, each of them had stats that you could look at, so you could constantly see what was better. If it's fast and it blocks well, I think that's gonna be your best bet. But for some of you guys who like to hit those one-hitter quitters, there's locker doors and sledgehammers you can use in this game. Just absolutely knock someone's fucking block off. So for my Chaz, that's what you guys can use. Now, aside from this combat, you get a lot of really cool tools you can use throughout the game to investigate different crime scenes or to get evidence while you're on the pursuit of some of these killers. And another cool mechanic though is how you can get into locked off rooms. You can use sledgehammers to break locks. You can get a fireman's axe to chop down old wooden doors. And doing this really gives you that Jack Nicholson Shining vibe. Here's Timmy. You know, vibes and mechanics aside, in conclusion, Condemned Criminal Origins is a game that exemplifies what made horror games impactful. The atmosphere, the desperation in combat, that feeling of constantly being hunted and never knowing what's coming up next. It's an experience that I feel like some modern horror games are kind of missing out on. But if you haven't gotten a chance to play Condemned yet, I highly recommend it. And just make sure you have an extra pair of pants around because you might need it. Well, if you guys like the video, drop a like down below, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and comment if there's any other games you guys want me to check out on the channel. Aside from that, guys, hope you're having a great day. Take care. Peace. Oh, good. What the fuck is that? I don't want to pick that up. Why would I want to pick that shit up?